When you hear the word discipline, you might have a preconceived notion as to what it means. Many things might come to your mind. It might be something that you view narrowly, or it might be something that you see in a broad spectrum. It might evoke feelings for you, some good, some bad. All of that is just okay. All of that is completely fine, because the way we view things is just based upon our unique lived experience, and we all have a different unique experience in this life. We all have a different lived experience. We all have different lives. The way we view things is completely dependent on everything we've ever gone through. But just take a moment to really think about it. Think about discipline and how you've viewed it in the past, how you view it now. If a lot comes up for you, maybe take the time to journal on it. I always say this, but journaling on these kinds of topics might bring to light some things that you might not have addressed or have even thought about, but that have been living in your subconscious. I know for me, for the longest time, the word discipline has triggered a sort of feeling of guilt, like a feeling that maybe I'm not doing enough for myself, maybe I'm not disciplined enough, or maybe I lack discipline in some way. I really thought discipline only applied to going to the gym when I was younger. And that was until a recent epiphany that I had. And it changed my relationship with myself and with life. And I really want to share this stuff with you guys. And I can't wait, because I feel like this could really change your life. In this video, we are going to be unpacking discipline, how to use it to your advantage, how to not burn yourself out. Also, just how all-encompassing it really is. This is going to be a deep one, so buckle up as we unpack this term and how it might apply to your life. Quick shout out to the author Ryan Holiday, as listening to some of his work has really inspired this video. So to start off, I really want to define the term discipline, using the dictionary, because I was shocked when I read this. So discipline: the practice of training people to obey rules or a code of behavior using punishment to correct disobedience. So let's take that definition and let's completely reframe it. So in different terms, if we look at it this way, discipline in your personal life is simply setting boundaries and setting rules for yourself. Honestly, I don't really like the way the word punishment is in the official definition, because I feel like that's a heated term with a lot of negative connotations. Punishment, it just sounds like you're a child. I think the true punishment when it comes to discipline is the fact that you're letting yourself down in a way when you're not disciplined. Is that when you don't meet the rules you set for yourself, you end up letting yourself down, or you end up imbalanced in a way. Imbalanced in your priorities, which is honestly kind of a punishment in itself. So let's talk about it. A lot of the time, discipline is something that people only apply in their fitness or their wellness journey. However, if you're in this for long-term happiness, which I'm sure all of us are, and if you're trying to be a more well-rounded, more balanced individual fitting in everything that you love, discipline applies to everything in your life, right down to your relationships with others. If you're only focusing on discipline in your life when it comes to going to the gym, but you have a lot of other things that you love in this life, you might be neglecting things that are important to you in the long term. This is why it's so important to view discipline as all-encompassing in every aspect of your life. So if this is feeling kind of tricky for you mentally, you can't really put it into an actionable plan or an actionable idea, think about it this way. The first thing you should do is just address all of your priorities. You need to address some short-term and some long-term, because short-term goals are what's going to lead you to your long-term goals. We all have priorities in the now, but we also all have an idealized version of who we want to be in the future, and who we'd want to see ourselves as in 5 to 10 years. Who we are, what we're doing, our job, our family, our friends. It's important to look at the long term, because if you're only looking at your short-term goals, your actions might not align you to that version you want to see in the long term. This might take a lot of thought. Putting it into words doesn't really do it justice. Like I said in the beginning, you really might want to be journaling this. I feel like it's so important for me to mention that you should be focusing on what you truly love and enjoy doing, and not just what you think you should be focusing on, now what other people want for you in this life, but who truly are you? Who do you want to be? What do you truly enjoy? So once you've figured out your long and short-term goals, I recommend that you start finding the overlap in them. How can you start adjusting your short-term goals so that they can be more all-encompassing and lead you to the long-term goals? This is just an example, but if you eventually want to be a writer and release books in the future, but in the short term, you're just trying to get your online business and personal brand off the ground, you should figure out where the overlap is with those goals. How will your online business and personal brand foster you becoming a writer? How will it foster those goals? Will it be a separate entity? Or will your online business and personal brand include documentation of your journey towards becoming a writer? Is that short-term goal of starting your online business and personal brand fostering the growth of you as a writer? Is it setting the proper precedent to you becoming a writer? How do the goals interact is, I feel like, the most important thing to think about. So once you have your goals figured out in a way that makes sense to you and you have your overlaps at least somewhat figured out, you kind of have a path lined up. You have more of the groundwork and the framework for setting discipline up in your life. So it's important to figure out a way to delegate discipline to each of your goals on a daily to weekly basis. And this totally depends on where your priorities lie. And this comes down to the nitty-gritty things, such as spending time with your partner or spending more time like nurturing your friendships that you have. If those are something that you really see important to you in your future, if you see your friendships as a huge part of your future, you want to be very close with your friends, you want to have weekly dinners with your friends, you need to be fostering those friendships now. So how can you start doing that now? And that's part of your discipline routine. Like if one of your future goals is to have a really deep connection with your partner, how are you going to start working towards that now? How are you going to add that into your routine on a weekly basis? Are you going to schedule evenings to spend time and learn more about each other as people? This is such a soul deep thought process, and it really involves more digging than just like listening to this video and maybe writing on it. Like, I feel like everyone is so unique in all these ways. Like, and by saying spending time with your partner or, nurturing your friendships, those might not be your priorities. You might be single and not really want to think about a partnership. You might be wanting to focus on your family and not as much on your friends, and that's completely okay. But just knowing, who do you want to create the deep connection with in your life, and how can you start nurturing towards that right now? So I just want to remind you that sometimes discipline can even look like missing a session at the gym because you haven't spent enough time with your partner, and fostering that relationship is really, really important to you in the long term. This is why only viewing discipline when it comes to your fitness and when it comes to your wellness can be really harmful. It can be really dangerous to your goals if you have other goals that surround the people around you. If you have other goals that surround, the type of work you want to create, your hobbies, other than that one goal. This would be the same for sleeping in. It's okay to sleep in and prioritize your health if you need it, and that doesn't mean you're not disciplined because you slept in and you missed a session at the gym. You slept in because you needed to hone in on your health for a minute. You needed to take a break and let your body rest. That's discipline. Discipline can look like sleeping in and pushing off a work-related task because that's what your body's asking for. Your health matters more than anything in the end. And you need to prioritize your health and well-being just as much as you need to prioritize your gym routine, just as much as you need to prioritize your relationships, your work. This is also why shifting disciplines on a daily to weekly basis is extremely necessary. It's difficult when you're A, a multi-passionate person, and B, just a busy person in general. It's really difficult to fit all of your disciplines into one day. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Like, people always talk about how, like, are you gonna have one watering can and water all your plants and like they might all die a little bit, or are you gonna have one watering can a day and water 2 of your plants and those 2 plants can thrive, and then the next day you water the other 2 of your plants? It's really, really personal to you and what those priorities and goals that you addressed prior mean to you? Discipline is about making sure that you are making time for all of your goals and not falling out of balance. This is including, but not limited to, your self-care, your relationships, your health, your wellness, and your dreams, your own personal dreams. Your priorities, like I just mentioned, will fluctuate on a daily to weekly basis as needed, so I really recommend coming back to your why every couple of weeks to make sure you're still on track for those long-term goals, to make sure you're still disciplined with some of your short-term goals. Come back to your truth and evaluate how you're creating the life of your long-term goals. How is your discipline creating it? And most importantly, stop comparing your journey to other people's. Everyone's priorities in life are slightly different, and your story is your own. Own it. Own your story. Own your priorities. Own the things that you're going to be putting yourself into, putting your all into. I sincerely hope that this video gave you some inspiration. I hope that it helped to create a form of discipline that feels good to you and does not feel like a chore and does not feel like a punishment. And I hope that you have some sort of plan now. I hope that you can take your overlap in your short-term goals and your long-term goals and really create something for yourself that you enjoy and does not feel like a force. And that's not to say it won't ever feel like a force, because sometimes life just feels like a force. Life gets to be too much and it feels like a force. But the thing that you have to do is just flip your priorities, let them balance out. When those kinds of things happen, when you feel a little more heavy, you need to let the self-care come up and let all the responsibilities come down here and let the relaxation come up here. It needs to come up to the forefront. So it's all about shifting and all about where your priorities are on like a daily to weekly basis, and it's all going to be different. So I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll have all of my socials linked below. Sound off in the comments any thoughts you have around the concept of discipline, anything that was like a moment, anything that was like, damn, like just let me know. Have a beautiful day.